We have someone in the waiting room too. That's right. Just close out of that. Live.
That's weird. I've always had to log into YouTube before, and it didn't make me do it that time.
Live. And then you got the sound. Yeah. And it should be counting down. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Or our first item is welcome to Dana, who's our new commission member. But I do not see her online. She's not in person right now, so hopefully we'll get to see her.
Unless, I don't know who the iPhone is. Is that Dana?
No, either.
Let me unmute them and ask.
It's Barlow.
Oh, hi, Paul.
His iPhone, okay.
You guys were,
Hey, Paul.
I didn't know you guys were in person today.
My name too, just easy. So I think we'll just jump to approval of minutes. So we have minutes dated 12/13/2021. If anyone wants to make a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second it.
There. Okay. And now we have topics from the floor, and the only non-commission member we have is Emily. Emily, did you have anything you'd like to bring up today?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the fact that last Wednesday, we successfully installed the last plants at Nob Hill Nature Park. And we can say that outside of some care and maintenance that's going to happen with the plantings this spring, summer, and fall, we're pretty much towards the tail end of the project. We, hopefully we'll get some good rain that will help the plants establish, and then it's just going to be a beautiful project from here on out. And some good landowner outreach as well. We have a possible small grant project starting with a landowner whose property is adjacent to the project site, and we're just going to have a really good experience going forward, I think.
Awesome. Thank you for the update.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add on that, Howard?
Oh, no, just lots of cages, and it was interesting to see them get all those plants in, and what a rainy day they did it on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. Next up, we have staff report. Just in time, Shauna.
Hey.
Hi.
Sorry, Dana's joining.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Dana.
Hi, sorry, I was having technical difficulties with my Zoom.
That's okay, no problem. We're happy to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
You're up, Shauna.
Well, so today's been quite the Monday. We've been having a lot of upticks with COVID stuff going on. So a lot of contact tracing and stuff. So sorry about that. I've been trying to work on that today. But so a few things that we have going on that I wanted to make you guys aware of is the McCormick Park trails, which those who walk it a lot know that they're probably flooded right now. And so we are working through what that looks like, but just to be cautious when you're out there walking them and stuff, because there's some areas that are a little bit more flooded than others. And then we'll look to see, once everything, all the water goes away, how many trees are down from the drought that we had during the summer. We'll start impacting stuff with the trees and things like that this year, quite a bit on the trails. We have the zip line is fixed over at McCormick Park, and there is some opportunities over there for some drainage. I don't know if you guys have been over there, but under the zip line collected a lot of water as well. So just going forward, we'll see what that looks like. We have finished the surfacing over at Neville Park. So the sports court is ready to be played on. There's still some things that we're finishing up with the contractors to be done over there, but they are usable. And I've been driving by there on the weekends and see quite a few people using the basketball court lot of kids and teenagers doing that. And then each time I've been, there's been somebody play pickleball.
Cool.
So that's been fun to watch. And then once we get the goals on the other side for the soccer, I'm sure we'll start seeing. Let's see, we started our basketball season. So we have 110 kids, I think, signed up for basketball. We did a little bit of a reduced league this year, just 3rd through 6th grade. Just because of the space available at the gyms with the high school doing remodel. It kind of puts a little squeeze on the gyms that are already really shorthanded, more shorthanded. So we worked with the school district to see what we would have available, and we felt most confident that we were able to serve 100 kids versus like the 300 kids that we normally have. A lot of grant cycles are starting to come open. So I've been researching those to see what those look like and what sort of opportunities we have for that. I talked to Doug, I believe it was last week, about some opportunities with trails and getting those more defined in the master plan going forward. And he stumbled across a very in-depth trail system plan that they have at the city of Portland that I was able to look through, and they have some really great ideas. So if you guys ever have time, it's just on the city of Portland's website, and I can send out the link as well. I talked to Ginny a little bit about it because she's the expert on the stuff that was done on the last master plan, and there is some pieces of trails in the last master plan as well as there will be trail stuff going forward in the new master plan. So before we deep dive and start doubling the work, we thought it'd be a really good idea to, kind of poke around, see what we want, that sort of thing. But that would definitely be like a community engagement piece in the new master plan. And then, have them do the work that we're asking for that RFP for. So let's see, I think that's probably about it right now. We're just super, super busy. In the last 60 days, we've had over 522 registrations and activities. And so it's been, the revenue that we've brought in for recreation has been almost $20,000 in the last 60 days. All of that goes back into the recreation programming, whether it's hiring high school staff, using stuff to shop local, paying for supplies and materials. So we don't ever carry over a budget. We spend it back into the local youth and stuff. So that's been a really cool thing to see, and that it seems like it's thriving. And we'll see what we have to do with the COVID uptick and how that affects us. And we'll definitely follow suit with what the school's doing with it. But we are, limiting how many people or activities, mask wearing, cleaning. So we're trying to still provide recreation in the safest way that we feel we can do so.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Shauna? That's a lot. Oh, Lynn, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, yeah, you're muted.
Sorry, my daughter came in and asked questions, so I did mute myself. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, I think Lynn, you had a question, Lynn? Yeah.
Lynn is muted.
Lynn, you're on mute.
You need to be asked.
I think I'll wait until later under discussion, but it has to do with the master plan.
Oh, okay, sounds good.
I do have two more things that I thought of quickly. Sorry about that. One is we are going to be doing interviews for our Parks Utility 1 position. Hopefully next week. So we've narrowed down the 34 applicants I think we got to the top 5, and then some ones that are on the cusp there. And then I talked to Dana about this, and Carmen, I had sent you an invite as well, but we are looking towards the spring and summer right now. So any sort of work parties that you're doing in that timeline that you want us to advertise and stuff, if you could start getting that information to us. I'd really love to challenge this group to think outside the box with some of the other parks that we don't normally do work parties. And even though if it's not a big showing from the Parks and Trails Commission, we could help, facilitate that. I'd love to see one at McCormick Park this spring and summer, one at Campbell Park. Citizens Day in the Park is going to be on June 25th, and we are working on planning that. And then talking to Dana, we were talking about doing an art in the park this summer, and we'd really like to integrate this group into what that looks like. So as we have more dates and planning, we'll ask for others to be a part of that too. Sounds good.
So was the art in the park gonna be like a 2-day event or a 1-day event?
So we don't know that yet. We're just we have the name for it, Art in the Park. It might change a little bit, but other than that, we're gonna start working on the framework for what that looks
Is
like.
it gonna probably be in just one park?
That's a great question too. Yeah, so we're just with the name right now. So I haven't, I said, yes, I will help do this. And they promised that they would do all the artsy stuff. And
Okay.
yeah,
So
so
the Arts and Cultural Commission is gonna work with us?
we don't have an Arts and Culture Commission right now. Yeah, so that's you, Jerry. We're gonna. No, but any ideas that you have and however you want to sprinkle it, and art means different things to everybody. So I think there's a fit for everyone to have something. I know the example Dana had sent me was another community that does a 2-day thing. So that's definitely a possibility. So I think it would just be whatever we thought would fit best for the community and what our volunteers look like.
My question then, if our arts and cultural is gone, whatever happened to the Flying Eagle then? Because weren't they responsible for the Flying Eagle dugout canoe?
I don't know.
Whatever happened to our dugout canoe in our community?
I don't know.
I
That's
believe it's stored in the Stimson building by Public Works.
Okay.
I think it's still there.
So, I mean, I know you said you just got a name for it, but are you thinking about like they used to have down, like the Arts and Cultural Commission used to have, where they would have booths and everything and people would come and purchase it?
Yeah, so I think that kind of the foundation of it would be something where people could show off their art and sell it and stuff, and then have some activities that people can do that are art focused, and maybe some art stuff that shows the history of St. Helens or the parks or that sort of thing too. So I think of it sort of kind of like a Saturday market type of feel with a little bit more of hands-on type of things is what my thoughts are. And Dana's unmuted now, so she might be able to talk just a little bit more about it.
Yeah, utilizing the example from a town that I lived in for many, many years, is a very small town, smaller than St. Helens. And they had a wonderful annual showing, and it happened every year. And theirs was a 2 to 3 day event. So depending on what is comfortable for our community, it usually went over a weekend. But they included everything from art to music to, small skits with the local community and high school. They incorporated local music talent and local creators. And so it did kind of resemble on some respects kind of a Saturday market type of deal, but it was all based around art and local creators and artisans and stuff. But a lot of community engagement. So there was the interaction with the community itself, as far as some activities, paintings or other group activities. But
That's a good, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, Dana.
Yeah, I do too. Mhm.
All right, anything else in staff report or questions for staff? All right, next up is counselor's report. Doug? Welcome.
Hey, I just got in off the hill. So I just drove up, kind of got everything set, and I'm here now. I don't have my agenda in front of me or whatever, but I didn't catch if Shauna talked about the trail grades and all of those kinds of things. So is that something that she just presented by chance?
So I did do a little presentation about that, Doug, about how we had talked about the standards that we would like for our trails to follow, and that trail plan that you had shown me from the city of Portland. That's pretty extensive, that I'll send a link out to everyone. And I was also saying that looking in the old master plan, we do have, or the 2015 master plan, we do have some of that in there at a very surface level, and that it is part of the RFP for the new master plan. And so we're excited to start that process of what we want those to look like. So as we do the new master plan, we can really make sure those things are in there. So I didn't go too deep on it, but I know that is something that is really at the top of our, especially with our Nob Hill Nature Park and our botanical gardens and Dalton Lake and everything that has the trail systems, well, McCormick Park and Godfrey. So we have quite a Fifth Street. We have lots of trails around here. So just really making sure that we don't lose the trail stuff in all of this as we go forward. But it is part of the RFP or RFQ right now, and then we'll be part of the RFP.
Can you be a little more specific, like, what did you call it, the RFQ or the RFP?
So the RFQ is the request for qualifications. And so that basically is when people submit applications saying, you know, if they're qualified to lead the plan for our Parks and Trails Master Plan. And the RFP is when they submit proposals
I gotcha.
on that. And we did go through this process a few months ago, but we only had 2 that submitted, and we weren't, as me being new and Carmen being newer, you know, just doing this process, none of us have done an RFP or Parks and Trails Master Plan. And so kind of dialing a little bit more of what was good on there that we wanted to keep and what's things that we needed to focus a little bit more on. So.
Hey, thank you, Shauna, for sharing that with the commission. I thought that document, does everyone have one of those documents now? I think it's about 60 pages or so.
Shauna was gonna send us the link.
Oh, okay. All right. So I thought it was timely because I know that just sitting through council talk that this blew my mind that Halloween Town had made $750,000 for tourism. And so, and that was after expenses were paid. So heavens, one of the things that that our event director basically reported to the council is that with that, she is the sole, she's in charge of those monies. That is because she made those monies, it stays in tourism, but tourism can spend it where they feel is important. And one of the places that she noted was Nob Hill Nature Park, because that revenue from the Nob Hill Nature Park activity that they had was made the most money out of everything. And so you start thinking about how much she gained on that. Well, Savvy, don't do that. My dog is up here on the couch. I'm sorry, but anyway, there's monies that can stay in tourism, and trails, especially trails, is a big part of that. And that's why I downloaded and did a kind of a search on the design and function of trails, and how all that's going to play for things, actually issues that will be happening real quick, and for the master plan. Hopefully we'll have a huge involvement in the urban trail, as well as a trail that goes south along the waterfront in front of the paper mill down towards Milton Creek, follow Milton Creek up towards McCormick Park. And there's all of these things that's been talked about and looked at, and they haven't been, I hope those get put into the master plan. I looked in a master plan, and Jen did put some sections of that trail in that goes south along the river front in front of the old paper mill. in front of the lagoon, in front by meaning on the riverside. And so, there you go. So it's exciting to me to have all this stuff going. And that's why I got involved in searching the different types of trails. And hey, Annie, can you take Savvy here? She's chewing on my shoe. So I just thought that it was timely, and especially timely with our master plan coming up. And I'm glad that Shauna shared that and gave that report. I don't really have much more other than knowing that things are going along with Campbell Park well, and Shauna gives you I think a great report on what's happening in the parks, and I really appreciate that. Hopefully the communication to the council between Shauna and myself becomes a lot more effective and a lot more timely, because I think that what happens by the time that you make recommendations and the recommendations then get to the council, or some of those recommendations get dropped, and then it comes back to the Parks Commission. It just seemed that there were a lot of missing pieces with communication, and I just appreciate Shauna being here, giving you a report for what's going on with the parks, instead of it going through her to me and then me give that report. Anyway, it sounds convoluted, and I think it was. I don't think it is now. I think with Shauna giving an update to what's going on in parks is going to help a ton. I'll open it up for questions if you care to.
You have questions for Doug?
Is Shauna, are you working out of the new location now, or are you over at the parks?
So my main office is at the community center at the 2625 Gable Road, so the newer location.
The new
But
location.
I can meet you if you want to meet over at the other office. I'm
Okay.
mobile, so just let me know.
I was just curious if you had
Yeah.
moved over there along with everything else. So cool. Looks nice.
Question for Sean too. Hey, Sean, when you hire the new person for the Parks Department, what's going to be the relationship or the chain of command, whatever you want to call it, between you and that person and us being the commission?
So the new person that we're hiring is a Parks Utility 1, which is an entry level position. So I'll be their direct report.
Just totally. So is there going to be, are you going to hire anyone that actually oversees the parks per se, or are you going to, that's going to be your role?
Yeah, so the current way that we have it is I'm overseeing the parks, and then I have a parks specialist, a Parks Utility 2 and Utility 1 that report to me. And then as far as the park supervisor role, we're still seeing what that need is, and especially having my role now and having Aaron's role, what that role would be and what things they could take that we're not able to do, vice versa. So we're still kind of figuring that part out.
But you're still thinking about hiring a supervisor, a park supervisor?
So we are in the budget cycle now, so we're seeing what availability there is and what the needs are, because as the rec program amps up and I'm pulled in different directions, we want to make sure we're covering everyone's bases the best we can, but we haven't made a for sure decision if that's the route we want to do or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Shauna or Doug? All right, we're gonna move on to new business. And first up, we have Columbia View Park expansion. Jenny?
Yeah, thanks. That's me. So Sherry's gonna share screen for everybody in Zoom land. Maybe we can get a confirmation that they can see that.
Can you guys all see the shared screen?
I can see it.
Yes, yeah, I
Okay.
can see it.
Thanks,
Yes.
Mom.
You can't tell because we're in the real world here. So this is a site plan. Let me just talk about where this document came from. So we're working on the Riverwalk project, which hopefully you guys are in tune with. We had an open house in the middle of December last month where this information was presented to the public. We also have a Riverwalk project website where you can go and look at this information more in depth. If you have trouble locating it on our website, let me know, but it's under Riverfront or Riverwalk project from our homepage. So that's where this came from. The specific request for you all is a recommendation to City Council at their next meeting to expand Columbia View Park by 0.6 acres. And that's what's shown on this map. It will also go before the Planning Commission at their February 8th meeting. So that's kind of the overview. I'm hoping to get a motion for recommendation to move forward with this. And okay, so now backing up, in the 2015 master plan, which Shauna mentioned already, it seems like we mention it every meeting. There were three things related to Columbia View Park, three main things. One, expand onto the publicly owned veneer property. At that time, we were in the process of purchasing it in 2015. Two, include Riverwalk access along the river. And three, improve the stage. So improve the amphitheater stage, sound quality, and increase capacity. So I'm focused today, we're doing all three, but I'm focused today on just the park expansion piece. So, you know, I can spend some time going through the different elements of the project that we have funding for, if that's useful, but the motion isn't around the park improvements themselves. It's just related to the expansion of the park southward. So just keep that in mind. So in the park itself, and just to circle back, this design is at a 30% level, which just means it's mostly concept, but the locations are pretty specific. The actual design work will go through multiple rounds of, you know, 60%, 90% and into construction documents. So they'll only get more specific from here on out. So in the park itself, there's a two main elements I wanted to look at. One is the stage. So we know that the existing gazebo is insufficient for events that we hold today. The sound quality is pretty poor. And then we also have kind of this temporary modular tile dance floor that's in front of the stage. So this new stage will be shifted back from the existing amphitheater seating and include a new concrete dance floor. So it'll be a permanent dance floor. And then there's going to be some concrete seat walls built in behind that dance floor. So if you think about the elevation, the dance floor will be kind of lowered below the stage slightly, and then you'll have concrete seat walls that kind of build up to the grade of the rest of the park beyond it. So the stage itself, we have some renderings online if you want to see kind of what that might look like. But again, it's just at 30% design, so it'll get more refined. It will have a movable back to it so that the view of the park and the river remain unobstructed when there aren't events. And then the back can be added back when you have a band, for example, where you want to amplify the sound towards the audience. So if you think of like a barn door that has, you know, wheels and can be, you know, rolled back into its storage area and then out for events. So I know views of the river were something that this commission and also just the general public was concerned about with the stage. So moving south, along the river's edge, you'll see kind of the area for the Riverwalk along the river's edge. So this is actually an expansion of the park itself towards the river. So the top of bank, you can see it on the more detailed design drawings. There's the top of bank is listed there. So there will be some grading to kind of increase the footprint of the park along the water's edge there. And then it kind of peaks in the middle of the park. So that's that kind of triangular portion in the park. And then moving south, There's going to be some concrete wall seating kind of built into the hillside or the bank side of the river there, and those will face the existing courthouse docks. And so now we're kind of in the park expansion area. And just to the south, the kind of last and I think the most exciting component of the Riverwalk for phase one is this cantilevered section. And that's kind of that angular shape that you see just next to those concrete seat walls. And this is an area where if you're looking towards the river, it's right when Sand Island tree line starts. You can see Mount St. Helens. So we're using this as an area where you can get off of the path and just look at the mountains. So you can obviously see Mount Hood further south. This is also a great opportunity for signage, interpretation, and so there's an interpretive element pointed out on this location as well. So the grade gradually decreases the further or the closer you get to the river. So moving towards kind of the Strand Street, you can have more seat walls, more landscaping, and it will just gradually slope up to the street system. There's some stormwater management in kind of the center portion there. You can see it highlighted. I know the text is really, really small. I recommend pulling this up online so you can zoom in. But there's just kind of a landscaped area there. And then there's the street extension project. So we view this area as being sort of like Seaside's promenade, where you can go reach the terminus of the street, turn around, and then get back out onto the street network. This is an area that'll have kind of a loading zone function because this will be an entrance to the park. There will also be some parking in this roundabout, so it's wide enough to have parking. And then, you know, if you wanted to use your car to load or unload, if you're hosting an event in the park, this might be a good place for you to enter. And then there's still going to be enough room for a travel lane to circulate through here. There's a sidewalk along that roundabout there too, so we can easily get into the park. This will be the main ADA acceptable for grade route entrance to the park. So right now there is a ramp in the existing park that is too steep to meet ADA slope. So while it could be ADA accessible, it doesn't meet the grade. And so this portion of it would be the acceptable grade to get into this park with a wheelchair. So that's the kind of the different elements. I did skip one element in the existing park, and that's the berm. So there's kind of this rounded hill in the park where we've got some other more concrete seating, some basalt seating along the edge there. This berm is, you know, under 4 feet in height. It's not going to be super tall, but it's just going to add some elevation to the park for playing on. You know, I can imagine kids kind of rolling down this small, gently sloped hill, but also seating for events. So it kind of extends the lawn area into this graded berm area. So I think I described all the elements. But again, your request specifically is just to move forward with the park expansion and to get a recommendation to council at their next meeting. So backing up a little bit about the quickness and the reasoning. So the way our park plan is set up for spending park system development charges, which is just a way that we collect money from developers to improve our park system. The way we spend that is by having an appropriate amount of acreage for each type of park. And in the parks plan, we're deficient on what's called an urban plaza park. And so by adding this, we will then become meeting that need, and then we're able to spend SDC funding or system development charges on this park in particular. One of the main reasons we were able to invest heavily in McCormick Park's playground is because it's system development charge eligible. And so expansion of this park will allow us to spend those monies in this park. And we're trying to do this pretty quickly because we've got work we want to be able to use that money on. So that's the rundown. I'm opening it up for questions because that was a lot of information. I would encourage, because I know this is a really big project and it's very public facing, I would encourage you to just look at these documents online and then get back to me if you have other questions. The purposes of this meeting isn't necessarily to get into all the nitty gritty of what's going to be built. I just want to remind everybody of that, but I'm happy to talk about that too. I just don't want it to get too lengthy about things that aren't related. So.
I have a question about the system development fees. Would that money have to be used to cover the roundabout street extension piece so that that money's not going technically into parks, but really going into like the road structure there?
Yeah,
Or
it's a good question because it's in the park that we're trying to expand. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So park STCs can only be spent on monies that are in adopted plans for improvement.
Okay.
And they have to be explicitly on park improvements.
Okay.
So that roundabout feature is not in our adopted plan, and so system development charges cannot be spent on that.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And then only other question I had was how many feet south is this?
The expansion.
Yeah.
Well, I know the
Yeah.
full Riverwalk is about 350 feet. So I mean that, I don't have an answer
okay,
for you right now. Yeah. It is to scale though, so if you know.
Yeah, I would, if it's a half an acre, I'd say it's about 150 feet.
Okay.
So
Give
the
or
existing
take.
park's probably 300.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd have to verify.
That's fine. No worries. Thank you. And anyone else have questions for Jenny?
Emily's raising her hand.
Unfortunately, I have to raise my hand because I need to get going. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely night.
Thank you, Emily.
Take care. Bye.
Anyone online have questions? Lynn, Dana, Paul?
No, not yet.
Nope.
Okay.
One comment I'll make, Jim, when I first looked at this, I was questioning the roundabout, I was gonna ask you some questions about that. And I was thinking, do you really need a roundabout there? But then the way you explained it, with the parking and people dropping people off and things like that, I thought, that really is a pretty good idea. It is a good idea.
It's gonna make the park a lot more accessible, I think. And I thought some of the questions might be around that because it's a street function, right? So why are we including it in the park? But if you think about McCormick, it's basically got a mini street system in it. It's not uncommon to have, and Campbell for that matter, Michael Street is entirely within the park. So it's not uncommon.
At one time you talked about having something where there was parking in that area for vendors. Would this ever be closed off and have it be filled with vendors or anything, or where would that go?
Yeah, so right now the way it functions is Strand Street gets closed at about Roy Ty. And then anything north of Roy Ty, Strand fills with vendors during 13 nights. So that will continue to remain. We are going to move the closure down further south. So right now the Streets project is entertaining an arm bar that would come and you could close it with a permanent structure as opposed to just putting up barricades. But it's going to remain in about the same area. So it doesn't really impact the roundabout, except for when the streets are closed, you'll have a nice area where you can turn around. If you didn't know that there was a street closure.
Other questions before we consider making a motion? All right, so Jenny's looking for a motion to recommend that we expand Columbia View Park by 0.6 acres. So if anybody.
Make a motion to expand Columbia View Park.
Does anyone want to second?
I'll second.
Great. And all those in favor say aye.
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 And anyone opposed? Awesome. Great.
Thank you. And I will say for the future of this project, we may come back to you in the near term about kind of the SDC package of what we're spending the money on in this park so that you can get more detail there. At least that's preliminary. The plan, I think it makes sense to engage this body more as this design gets further and further. So yeah, I'll see you again on this project.
Perfect. Thanks you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, before you go.
Yeah.
I have a question totally unrelated to this. In Godfrey Park, I know that we talked about having a kind of an outside play area with logs and tunnels and things like that. Whatever happened to that?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. I know there was a design and an effort put into creating that design and engagement with y'all. And then it sort of just died. So I don't know.
I thought there was money and everything for it, but there wasn't. Huh?
Yeah, there wasn't.
I mean, I think a lot of it was designed to be done in kind, and so it has to do with when capacity is there for parks crew to be able to do it. Maybe that's part of it. But the design is still there.
I think that's what we've run into, because we brought it up kind of over and over again, and there was
Okay.
a lot of turnover, not turnover, but just changes in staffing and parks.
And priorities.
And yeah, the priorities, as well as just not having the staff time to be able to do it. I remember it was on that list of like wanting to do, but there was just too much ahead of it, so it's just never been happening.
Yeah, see, I thought some of that was already purchased, some of that equipment, you know, the logs and the stuff that was gonna be laid there.
It was sourced, like they
It
sourced,
was sourced.
like they had, links to here it is in the catalog, but I don't think it was ever purchased.
Okay, because I know we looked at specifics,
Yeah.
items. Okay.
All right, awesome. Next up on the agenda, we have tourism impact and funding allocations. I put this on because some of our discussions, the past couple of meetings and a discussion with Shauna as well, and just and then going off of what Doug already told us earlier in the meeting, that there was $750,000 that came out from tourism this last year. And a lot of those events are held in our parks. And so I wanted to bring up the idea that maybe we make a recommendation to City Council to consider allocating some of those tourism funds to go back into our parks to make them better for future tourism events. So the places that come to mind, top of mind for me, are Columbia View Park, Nob Hill Park, and then just trail systems and interconnectivity. So I don't have a specific plan, but wanted to get your guys' thoughts and if we could make kind of a broad recommendation that City Council consider that.
The one question I have is what was said earlier in the meeting was that the money that was brought from tourism, basically from Halloween, that that money could be spent where they deemed it necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had a long discussion with Matt when they did the presentation here about spending, tourism money on trails, basically, because I'm in the trails. And he says, well, it has to be specifically a revenue making, like, you have to, like, let's say you charge someone to walk on the trail, then you could use that money to do it, but otherwise you couldn't. But if the city has discretion to take, money from Halloween Town that they've made there and spend it on the parks, I think that's a great idea. So that can happen? They have discretion to spend it where they want to spend it?
If you're asking me, I don't know the answer to that, but I do want to say that if things are being impacted by events that are going on tourism, you can, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, and Doug and Matt, it looks like you're both here, but you can use that to replenish those things, right? Like if it's, yeah, but I don't know if you can just spend it directly on.
Doug, can you hear us?
Yes.
What's your take on that?
Well, you're exactly right. The money's made in tourism stays in tourism. Now it's up to the tourism director to make the call of what is needed to help facilitate future tourism. It is not up to the city council. That's separate from the city council. The city council works with the tourism director. And in our retreat, we're going to hammer out, I think, the particulars in all of that, of where that money gets you best utilized. And Tina will explain her rationale to the council for doing it. As you know, there has been a big uproar on wanting everyone wants a part of that pie. And well, you know, it's kind of an ongoing circumstance and situation with the council of how involved the council gets with Tina's performance, for example. Do we fire Tina? Do we get someone else? Do we keep Tina on as a tourism director? There's all these things that are requested of the council, and it's complicated. So when the budget meeting unveils itself and we go through our budget meeting and the council goes through their retreat, I think I can have much better answers for you. But for now, those funds are under the auspices of our event director, Tina Curry.
So how would we as a Parks Commission go about getting money allocated to the park, saying that, you know, like Nob Hill was.
She's already hinted and said that she, out of the, you know, the parks that she utilized the most was Nob Hill Nature Park.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the events that she plans on having next year, how to best facilitate those events, and because those events cost money, but with Tina at the helm, they make a heck of a lot of money. So we need to hear about what she has in mind and what's going on. For example, the sandcastle the sandcastle event over on Sand Island was such a huge success in many people's eyes. And so she wants to bring that back, and she wants to make it bigger and better. So what's she going to do? She wants to purchase a boat to get people over there, a ferry to get people over there. She wants to get people from Holton and from the highway area down to downtown and best kind of like get a transportation kind of thing going. So she wants to buy what they call a tram, kind of a train of like trolley cars. And, you know, so that's what she wants to do because she sees the future in tourism. And boy, the figures don't lie. I mean, it's amazing what she did. She turned this town around for getting tourism as a base economy for the city. In the past, tourism has been nothing. It's been kind of a joke, and all of a sudden, it's before us right now, and so we have to make those decisions. So I hope, you know, I don't want to muddy anything, but we don't know yet how we go about doing these things, and how you request from tourism monies that will help aid tourism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so would the best path forward for us be that we make a recommendation to City Council to set forth kind of a process for when groups within the city or commissions want to request tourism money be spent in a specific way based on the events being held there, that we have a process to follow to do that?
That's what we're going to iron out. That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head about those problems and what those issues are. How is that money going to be spent? How is it going to be utilized by future tourism? Because what stays in that fund by state regulations is state and federal regulations stays in that fund has to be spent on tourism. So can Tina Curry rationalize that monies that go into Nob Hill Nature Park are going to be utilized by tourism? You bet. That's exactly what she reported to the city. So I can tell you that, and any other kinds of aspects that involve tourism. And I think that's where the parks come into play, of what kind of events, what kind of activities, what kind of things is Tina Curry going to have in mind for the parks? Sand Island. I know she has the sandcastle thing going. Kite Festival. Those kinds of things that she'll be utilizing parks for, I think is quite exciting, because here it is. She makes a lot of money to help, I think, in the long run, to help out parks. So we just got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I think that's positive, but I also think if we're gonna use those parks for tourism, then some of that funding needs to go back into the parks to actually support that tourism.
Exactly.
So
Well,
it sounds like the conversations are gonna be happening already, so, but I still feel like we should make some kind of a motion to at least make it clear to the city council where the commission is at on our perspective on it and what we would like to see. I don't know if it will do anything, but that's where I'm at.
I think that would be very appropriate for the Parks Commission to weigh in on that. And I can help facilitate that in hopefully our next meeting. And I'll certainly talk about it in the retreat as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I want to go back to what I was talking with Matt a couple of weeks ago, was, could money, from tourism be used on parks? And Matt, you're there? See your name. And basically what I said earlier, I'll say again, he said that it had to be, a direct sale. Well, if they are charging ticket prices for people to go up to, Nob Hill Park, then I see that as, a direct payment, because I was trying to get, money for people to come and do the urban trail, because people will come and walk it. And he says, well, yeah, they'll come and walk it, but you're not charging them for it. But if you are charging people to go to Nob Hill Park, then that is a direct charge. Possibly, Matt.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I can try and answer as best I can. Councillor Morton stated it the most clearly, I think, in that the spending of the tourism funds and the revenue is up to the tourism director and the city administrator who oversees tourism. The council may direct some type of policy in some case. What I think you might be looking or trying to attempt to do is recommending a policy to the city council that if parks are used for events, that parks receives a proportionate amount of the revenue.
Yeah.
I think that is what you're talking around. Again, that would be just a recommendation to the city council. But Councillor Morton did say very clearly and concisely, and he is correct, that the tourism director has the overall spending authority to spend what she wants.
And would that come into, because I heard that there's contracts that are going to be kind of redrawn up for tourism. So would that be something that could potentially go into a future tourism contract to say that not only does the tourism director have say in where those funds go, but they have to consult with X, Y, and Z, or go through this process, or?
I would not, because I'm not involved in tourism or the contract negotiations or the attorneys that are involved in creating that contract. Your questions are best directed towards Councillor Morton, who can share your concerns with the council and with the city administrator who oversees tourism.
Okay, thank you.
Carmen?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to run something by here and then we can change it. Is this kind of what you're thinking about though? So when parks are used directly by tourism to make a profit, then a portion of the money that is made from that should be then be turned back to the Parks Department for use to improve parks.
Yeah, that's where my.
Yeah, that was pretty wordy towards the end there, but is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah. Tourism events held in tourism specific events that are held in parks, the
A portion of that revenue
portion of
should,
proceeds should be returned to improving that park that had the event for future.
okay, then you can't make a motion,
I
right?
don't think I can. 'Cause I'm-
Okay, then I'll make a motion. You can change the wording if you like it. So when tourism uses a city park for a tourism event, that where people are charged for that event, then a portion of that revenue, is that the word you use, revenue? Or proceeds should be returned to the Parks Department for parks improvement.
On that part.
Oh,
'Cause
specifically
I
on
think
that
you
part.
want, like,
Yeah, it has to be on
if an
that.
event was in Nob Hill.
Gotcha. Okay,
then
for that,
proceeds for that should go back to.
Sherry, you write this down.
Sharon.
Oh, Aaron,
Sherry
write
has
this
it.
down. Can you repeat that without all the phrases in there?
Dana, I think Dana. had
Yeah, I had a question too to clarify. Say we're utilizing the park space for the example being 13 nights, where perhaps in the future they're not directly charging admittance from the public to utilize the space, but it is an event that is occupying the park space. However, the revenue from that event generally comes from vendor fees and other sales. So would a percentage then of that revenue be utilized for that park space? Second question, also the just because I'm not aware, the park space that's directly in front of the courthouse, is that technically a city park?
That's a,
Sorry, that's county property. We do the plaza.
The plaza's a county park.
Okay, perfect.
I would think that revenue for 13 nights, if it's revenue for tourism, that's considered a tourism event, then I would think there could be potential for that money to go back into improving the park. And maybe that's improving vendor spaces, if that's where the majority of that revenue is coming from. I don't know.
And the reason I ask too is because this could really, I mean, if that kind of a verbiage and agreement was created between the city and the tourism director, it would be a lot easier to get the public support in larger and more frequent events. And that could also offer more funding avenues for creating bigger and better tourism directed events in the community. That's more, it's not necessarily just downtown centric, but more community based and facilitate assistance in other locations in the city, because we have a lot of gorgeous parks that could be utilized by things like tourism, and those areas could really use the money.
Agreed.
I think we have somewhat of a mechanism in place, and that's the permit system. And in the permit system, there there could be language of whoever uses the, by the through the permits, a monetary basis of exchange. In other words, if the tourism individual wants to utilize Nob Hill Nature Park, pull a permit and estimate how many people, how much money, how those kinds of things in the permit. And then the permit is for that park only. And I kind of see the mechanism is in place, but it's just in place. That's all. It hasn't been thought about, hasn't been worked through, and I'm not quite certain how effective that could be. But there's so many options, and we're just on the cutting edge of trying to figure, okay, how's all this going to work? Because it's all new. The paper mill went away, and the city is, people are coming down to the city council saying, well, what are you going to do to improve the economy? What choice did we have? We have one of the most beautiful pearls on the Columbia River in terms of the acreage and nature parks and all kinds of things. I mean, tourism makes so much sense, and it's a clean industry, isn't it? It's it might be a pain for a lot of people, but especially people who resent people coming in to our place. But hey, it's going to revitalize our economy huge, and especially the service-based economy. Case in point, the tourism people had all these events going on, whatever, and this guy from Portland comes down and looks at the Klondike and says, I want to be here. I want to be right here. And because there's things happening in this part of the town where 3 years ago it was a dead town and there was just nothing happening down there. Now it's coming alive. So, to figure out how we're going to how the city is going to posture and how the city is going to work with the tourism department or person or corporation is yet to be seen. Totally. There's a lot of work to do. And you folks are just getting right in the middle of it. And I'm so glad, because I have to take this message to the council.
Matt has his hand up. He's had it up for a little bit, so I want to let Matt go. And then I know Howard and Jerry and Lynn, I think all have comments too.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, as much as you guys are talking about revenue coming in to the city from tourism events, and Halloween Town is definitely a special event for the city that does bring in a lot of money. But please keep in mind that there are a lot of events that we do that do not make money, like 13 Nights typically does not make money or just barely breaks even. So it's nice to take a piece of the pie, but the only reason those events are happening is because Tina is able to do them within a certain amount of budget and using sponsorships and funds from the entire year at Halloween Town. So it's not going to be the savior for anything with parks or any kind of a cash cow, if that's what the commission is thinking. And to just also add on to Councilor Martin's comments about fees and permits and everything, we typically do have costs for permits. Those are typically waived for city events like 13 Nights and Halloween Town. So just an FYI there.
I'd like to say something just really quick so we don't go too far off topic with what we're talking about here. But I think what I'm hearing you say, Carmen, and correct me if I'm wrong, But you would like some sort of process to be in place for the impacts that happen on the parks during tourism things. So for instance, having more gravel at Nob Hill, or if we need to plant more seed, or if we have more garbage services or toilet paper needed, that is not necessarily coming out of the parks budget, is what I'm hearing you say, maybe, especially if they're events that are getting money put towards them. And so I think that how Doug and Matt both said to, making a recommendation to the council for them to look at that as they're doing the new contract, to look at the impacts that it's going to have on the parks and what sort of permitting process that's going to be, like Doug said, if it's an event that's going to be 60,000 people, what part of the permitting process do we need to make sure, there's enough toilet paper or garbage sacks or seed, grass seeds or things like that. So I think that's what I'm hearing you say, not so much that you are thinking that tourism is going to be the way that parks pays for things from now on. But it's really going forward with a good plan of like, what's the impact's gonna be and how are we gonna solve that impact after it happens type of thing.
That, and also just general improvements too, like if there's things that we can do to the park because it's gonna be used for this event every year and we can make this park better to help facilitate that event going smoother, or that event being more informative for people. Like for Nob Hill, we have the event going through, like maybe you put some of that money into the pathway and like informational signs about the plants and like really make it benefit that event in some fashion. So not just all the money from that. We want all the money to go back into parks to do whatever we want, but really to help with the impact of that event on our parks, like you mentioned, the gravel, all of that stuff, but also improving it for future events as well. So.
Yeah, and I think in a different way, it might not touch too much on tourism, but with the Parks and Parks and Recreation Master Plan that I keep bringing up, is there will be parts that we do talk about what events happen at the parks and what they see to be things. But I definitely think during the council retreats that they're having and stuff, that this, as Doug said, will bring up, and then they can start hashing out what that looks like as far as the give back to parks and what is even allowed with tourism dollars. So, yeah.
Great, Howard.
I'm a little bit, it's been stated so many different ways that the tourism director has complete discretionary on the funds. Could we end up with surprises where suddenly we find out that things are being done in a park that would just totally permit another event with no input from anybody? I try not to get into this, but right now, as Shauna mentioned, I'm starting to move the gravel into Nob Hill myself right now. Asked for 2.5 months about erosion that's happening in our park. I'm re-graveling the trails now. Nothing to do with tourism. Volunteer, me, re-graveling the trails in Nob Hill now.
I think that's part of it. That's part of what we want support on.
And that's something that to me should have happened within a month after Halloween Town happening. Was with the wear and tear, some of the erosion that's taking place right now could have been slowed if something would have happened. And now here the volunteers are starting to repair the park from a major event.
I think that's what we want to try to get ahead of for next year, is that this is like trying to get ahead of that so that if there's a big event in Nob Hill Nature Park again next year, that there's going to be some funding and some support in place to be able to rehab that trail after the event. But right now we're going through this process of trying to figure out how do we even get any of that money or get that support to do that. So I think we can't dwell on the past event, but we have to try to move forward and plan for the future. I think
a lot of sweat equity into this to repair the trails from a major city event that made $750,000, and there's no participation from, I have a volunteer or somebody from something that helped on Halloween Town come out and help with gravel. So
I think we have to ask for that. We can't assume people are going to just.
Carmen, I've asked 3 or 4 times.
So, all I'm saying, that's all, I don't wanna get into it.
Trying to get this
That's all I'm saying.
conversation out there so that we can.
I'll make
move
a,
forward
I'll
and
make a
plan
proposal,
for the future.
and then
I
we can,
think Lynn had.
Oh, Lynn
did
has
you still have something?
Very simple. I just want to say that I agree with the wording that was used by Carmen and Jerry to develop that proposal that'll be carried forward to the city.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn.
Aaron, can you read that proposal?
Yeah, when tourism uses a city park when it is charged for, then a portion of proceeds should go towards park improvements towards that park. Okay. So, I don't get to make the motion.
I don't say that, well, you're good. It's really your emotion, but,
No, not really.
but I like the ideas. Read that again, Aaron.
Okay. When tourism uses a city park when it is charged for, then a portion of proceeds should go towards park improvements towards that park.
Yeah, the very first wording there, so when a park is used and a profit is made, or how's that? I can't hear you very well.
Tourism uses a city park for
An
an
event.
event. Proceeds for that event,
A portion of the proceeds.
portion of the proceeds for that event are considered for reinvestment into, I missed the last.
What was it? Yeah, for, what was the last wording on that, Aaron?
Then a portion of proceeds should go towards park improvement towards that park.
Yeah,
Or
for that portion.
improvements.
Read that, I like it.
Portion of the proceeds from, sorry, go back into the park for improvements.
From that event. From that event.
Specific to the event.
Yeah, because like the trails were, or maybe plants were destroyed, or, I don't know if I
It's
can
kind
read
of all
this
over
or
the
not.
place.
So,
Question. Sorry, can I have a question on that proposal? Because by the sounds of it, you're looking at every single time there would be an event done, then we would look specifically at that event, look specifically at the revenue accrued from that event, and then request a percentage of that revenue simply, to go back to for repairs and whatnot at that park, which the intent is good. However, I question the verbiage regarding the specific event that's held and then requesting income for that specific park. Is there ability to request that tourism director allot a percentage, and it could be minuscule, but a percentage of the tourism revenue to benefit and improve the parks utilized to host tourism events, rather than doing a each event request? Instead, do an estimated monetary request based on last year's revenue and the expected impact for the upcoming year.
I like that approach. I feel like it's less complicated and more of a holistic view, a holistic approach.
why don't you go ahead and make a motion? Start from the beginning.
Then I would like to make a motion that the Parks and Trails Commission requests that the tourism director allot a percentage of the annual tourism revenue to benefit and improve the specific parks utilized to host tourism events, and that amount would be based on estimated cost for improvements and also the previous year's tourism revenue.
I like it.
I like it.
Okay, so that's a motion. Does anybody want to second that motion?
A second.
Okay, Lynn's gonna second.
Yeah.
All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Yeah.
Anyone opposed? Howard is opposed. Okay. All right.
Quick question, Donna, when you have tournaments, disc golf, softball, baseball, soccer, maybe pickleball in the future. So there's a permit to run that event. Does all that event then go to the Parks and Rec?
Is the revenue for the events?
Yes.
So the permits, the money that is put for the permit gets split up depending on if it's for a street closure or if it's for actual use of the park. It gets split up. And then if you sell concessions there, then the city gets a certain percentage of the concession sales that goes back to the general fund.
Or it goes to the general fund.
But there is parts of the park rental that goes back to the parks department.
So when they.
There's several different aspects of the permit.
So when, say they're holding a big softball tournament. So a portion of the permitting process goes back to you or to the.
Goes back to parks, yeah. The part that they reserve, the monies that are held to reserve that area goes back. But then there's also other permitting parts that go around to different areas.
Okay, any other thoughts, discussion on this before we move on? Sorry, that's kind of.
Started this.
I know, I'm
That-
sorry.
That's exactly what happens in our budget process and our budget meeting, which is made up of 5 counselors and then 5 people from the community. And we hammer out these kinds of things. Okay, how much maintenance is the baseball fields and parks going to anticipate? So it's important sometimes to be at some of those meetings as well and weigh in with others. I mean, I'm 1 out of 10 people that many times just gets hammered for wanting more money for parks, more, and it's like, no, we need it for police. No, we need, the library needs it. And it's whoever kind of like expresses the most urgent need usually gets their share of the pie, and in terms of departments. And lately it's been the police. And so it's just a matter of juggling monetary kinds of things. But then along here comes tourism, which has nothing to do with the city budget. Absolutely nothing. Totally separate. And so we're trying to figure out what the impact of tourism is, if the impact of tourism is on parks. And that could be probably just a general, amount. I'm not certain how Tina would react to that, but I do know that she felt that she had an impact on Nob Hill Nature Park, and that she wants to make that right. She wants to put money back into trail development and enhancement that can facilitate people if whether it's Halloween Town or any other kind of event that comes along. And the cool thing about that is that our public, our citizens benefit from that, because after all, if there's outside money in tourism coming in to help facilitate a park, that makes total sense to me. It's a win for our community, no matter what. So again, we're at the crossroads. Our finance director is kind of like at odds as well of where to go, what to do, and how to weigh into these things. And our retreat's going to be very exciting, I think. We'll have our attorneys there. We'll have people who hammer out these kinds of agreements, and kind of see where it goes. I'll have a good report for you, I think, next time.
Thank you, Doug.
I just wanted to add real quick, the part I wasn't comfortable with the first proposal was the proceeds part, because
Yeah.
like we mentioned, there's lots of tourism activities, 13 nights that don't necessarily get proceeds, but still have a negative impact on the parks. Garbage collection, bathroom, toilet paper, all that kind of stuff that I guess is coming out of the park's budget. Reseeding grass, whatever it might be. We were down there for the Christmas ships and people tromping through the park in the wet mud, and so lots of tourism activities that don't necessarily make a proceed, but I think it just makes sense if our parks are being utilized by tourism and impacted, that part of that should come back to the parks in some way.
Well said.
Very good.
All right, next on the agenda, Lynn, Dalton Lake Report.
Well, I tell you what, after I heard Doug, I'm going to read just a sentence from a paragraph I'd like to send to all of you, as well as Doug. And it starts out with, cities offer a great challenge to sustain fish and wildlife species and habitats under developed conditions bustling with human activity, as well as a great opportunity to engage people with nature and contribute to larger scale conservation needs. That's not all of it, but it's always seems like a little at odds at times, you know, to when we start talking about parks and how we want to develop them or make them, or as a preserve or a nature park. But I also oversee Walnut Tree Park. So I just want to quickly say it's doing great. There's been no damage done to anything that's in the park. The little library is doing well and people keep putting books in. Dalton, starting in April of 21, we planted 65 native species of flowers in the North Wetland area of the preserve. And of this date, probably a good 1/3 is still developing and doing well. It was a hard, hot summer. So I'm hoping that with some of those seeds, they'll start again this next spring. May through September, we had work parties, removing ivy and blackberries, and signs for the preserve were ordered with a generous donation. It actually came to $436, I understand, out of the $500 donation for the signs. So maybe I can get one more sign out of that. October, the second kiosk and bike rack were installed. And that's at the beginning of the Rutherford Parkway on the south end. So right across from where the Humane Society is. So we don't have the signs for that kiosk yet, but hopefully that'll be in March. November, the donation to remove non-native species was used. There was an herbicide spray done, or application, by the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council. So I have March of 22 is probably when the next things will be happening, and that's for signs and 3 benches. We have 3 little trails that sit on that go to the Columbia. We have 1 bench on trail number 1. We have 3 other benches to install. So that should be done in March. And we also plan on placing plant species signs at various sites with QR codes so people can see the description and a picture of the flower or plant or tree. And that's in the works right now. Yeah, let's see. I guess I'm trying to make it short. I know this is going a little long, but that's what's happening there at Dalton right now.
Thank you, Lynn. I wonder if the approach being taken at Dalton, like with the signs with the QR codes, if that could be utilized in some of our other parks. It'd be nice to see some consistency, like if we had something like that in Nob Hill, if that was something that you guys were interested in, Howard, it would be nice to see that kind of consistency in our parks.
What I could do is take a picture of one of them as soon as they're ready and bring it to the commission so they can see what they look like. And find a party to make those.
What is a QR code?
It's a QR code, you just scan it with like you take a picture of it on your phone and then it links you to the website with more information about it.
Like a restaurant.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Lynn. Does anyone have questions for Lynn? Right.
I gotta go down there and check it out.
Next, we have discussion items. It's not on the agenda, but one of the items we need to address this meeting is a new vice chair and a new chair. So if anyone wants to make recommendations on who they would like to be chair or vice chair, then we can make motions and vote. And then next meeting will be the first meeting with the new chair or vice chair running the meeting.
Carmen,
Yeah.
Doug's idea before had been to have the vice chair become the chair, and that's John. And since he's not here, if you want to vote for John, I would qualify it by saying if he is accepting of it or something, and then we can
I thought,
verify
I
it with
thought
him before the
I thought
next
we did
meeting.
that last time.
Yeah.
We didn't? I thought
Last time
John,
we didn't do that because nobody wanted to be chair.
Lisa didn't want to be
last
chair.
time.
no, I mean, last meeting, I thought John said he was gonna do it. No,
Oh, be chair? We didn't talk about it last
Oh.
meeting.
maybe it's just between him and
So
I.
if we want to go that route and someone wants to make a motion for him, then we should consider that and make sure that for next meeting that he's good with it. But thoughts? Anyone want to be chair or vice chair? I would say speak up.
Well, I thought we, last time, I make a nomination that John be the chair
The
next,
chair.
for next year.
Is anyone else interested in being the chair? I feel like Lynn, you've expressed interest in the past of
Yeah,
wanting to.
either chair or vice chair.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true, because I don't know who's been, we've been kind of rotating it through.
Last one was kind of weird.
So I don't know if John was, how much time do you have left, Lynn? Do you have a couple years left?
I think it's the end of 23. Oh, wait, no, it would be the end of 22.
You're probably gonna do it again, though. You're probably gonna do it again because of Dalton Lake.
Oh, yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah, then
I would say that.
then I make a motion that, John Burrington he goes from vice chair to chair. And then then Lynn becomes the new vice chair for next year.
That room's for being chair the next time.
She should be chair the next time.
Do you mean chair for this year? Or vice chair, rather?
You'd be vice chair this year.
Okay.
That's the way I worded it.
And the next year you'd be probably.
Next year you would be the chair.
Okay. All right.
I'll second that.
Okay, Howard seconded, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one opposed? All right.
Now, if John doesn't want
If
to
he
do
doesn't
it,
wanna do it.
then we're gonna then Len will become chair and someone new that hasn't done it. Like Brandon or Dana or.
We can email John and make sure he's okay with it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Sherry. All right, next, any other discussion items that folks have? Howard, you get to go first.
Okay, let's see, first of all, I want to, say that, we're gonna do our first, Saturday in April again, our standard work party this week, is that on the calendar? Also, the boardwalk's been really interesting, it's been right out floating, just a couple inches of water on it on the Fifth Street Row, and so if you haven't done anything, there's a lot of new caging, and it looks really neat over there to see everything that Emily with the Watershed Council has been doing. And then I thought I'd just give you guys the recap. We figured out the hours. So for the last 6 months, just me and Caroline have given 49 hours to the park. The fall work party, I had 53 hours for a total of 102 hours in the last 6 months going into the actual Nob Hill area. And then Emily's got however many for the Fifth Street Trail. You know, I think I'll stop boring you with that right there.
Awesome. Thank you for all the time that you guys put into that. Anyone have questions for Howard? All right, Jerry, you said you have discussion items?
Oh, yeah. This is under the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's under this right here.
Take a guess.
Well, I'm gonna keep the urban trail in everyone's mind, just because like we were talking about down at Godfrey Park, you know, there was a great idea for there and it just kind of goes away. So yesterday, my wife and I went for a walk and we walked along the river walk here. And I mean, we were only out here a very short period of time. And so I thought, oh, I'll just count the people. There was 20 people that were using that area. And Howard, you know, but it was, yesterday was an absolutely gorgeous day. So, you know, the river, you know, the urban trail, it does a couple things. You know, it connects trails together. We have lots of trails, but they're not connected together. Also, you go through 6 parks, and then you also see, you know, Sand Island. And kind of like Doug made a statement, said like, you know, this place is kind of coming alive. And an urban trail would bring, I know it's not tourism, but it would be an amenity for the people in St. Helens to be able to walk a nice trail. There's people that come here and like he says, they look at the Klondike. I was up at the View, is that the one that the boat called there last summer? Yeah, and you know, we were sitting there, my wife and I were having a drink, and this couple was next to us, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we're from Portland, and we go on walks all the time." So it does bring people into town. It's you know, it's something. And as the other thing, kind of like Doug says, I don't think we really realize what we have here. I've walked, I won't say 100, but I walked many trails in the region. And I think this urban trail here, with what it has with, you know, with the marina and the river walk and the old courthouse, and Knott Hill Park, and, you know, the new river walk, and, you know, the view that you have of the river when you get above the cliff over there. I mean, we have a trail that would be one of the nicer urban trails in this region. So my point is, let's not let this die. And you know, let's make sure it gets in the master plan. And then I know Shauna, she says I know that, you know, priorities that the police, etc., you know, they might have a higher priority, but you know, I think we should still work. Shauna could look for grants, and we should still work for this. And like above the cliff up there, like I was talking to Mo there, and you know, he wants to put a barrier up there, which I think we really need for safety reasons, even if we, you know, we never, you know, even if the urban trail goes on the other side of the road, there still should be a barrier there. So my point is, you know, I'm not going to let this go away, and you guys are going to get sick of me talking about this. But I know we put a lot of work into Carmen and myself, and Howard and Lisa, you know, and I just think this is something that would really benefit the city of St. Helens.
Second that.
Yep, it's on our list, and I believe it's in pieces of the RFQ. The request for qualification brings up trails, so it will be part of the new master plan.
Here's one thing I think I'm going to do, if it's, I don't know if this is kosher or not, but you know, the handout we made, I'll get some of those printed off. I can, you know, I don't know if the city can do it, or I can have one of the printers do it. And I'd like to give it to some of the people downtown here. I know the store, which I don't know the name of the store, Molly's store. I had coffee there yesterday. The lady that owns that, you know, I talked to her about, you know, the trail, and she's just, you know, all in for it. And another business person I talked to, you know, people are for it because it will bring people, you know, local people and people from outside of the city here. So I am thinking about passing out some of those brochures that we made about the park, so people, it kind of gets out there and people can see what we're talking about, besides it just being within this group.
Let me know if you need any help revamping that. Or anything else? Brandon, any updates? Okay. Lynn, anything else?
Yes, I want to make a suggestion for the master plan for the future of the Ross Road property. And I don't know how many of you play golf, but I was wondering if we could use that to make a short course that would also use part of the Millard property. I've played a lot of short courses in my time. And I think not only would the citizens of Warren appreciate that, it also helps to bring up values of your property. We have salmon habitat in that area also of McNulty. We have kids already learning how to play golf there, and it's all set up. We've got a maintenance man that could be used, and it would also bring income to St. Helens. So what are your thoughts? Also, oh, one more thing, it would save the 200-year-old oak trees that are there as well.
I don't know enough about the status of those properties. I feel like the Millard Road property is the one that's going away and being sold. Ross Road is the property that we're keeping, but I feel like they're kind of up in the air.
Well, I don't think that they have the Ross Road property yet.
Yeah.
But they're hoping for that. And if you put some of the houses that they wanted to build there, they could build closer to Millard Road in order to get those 9 hulls.
I'd be in favor of adding it to our like running master plan list of ideas so that when we have them, when the master plan is being worked on, that idea is in there and it doesn't get lost.
Okay.
You know, Lynn, I have thoughts. I play golf all the time, you know, with an old guy. And, and you know, my thinking on that is that, you know, a golf course is, you know, very expensive, you know, to run and everything. But I know that there's a, you know, like a driving range out there. I don't go out there very often, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. But I could see, you know, having, you know, like a driving, you know, a practice area that was well done, you know, where people could go and work on different parts of their game. But my initial response is that it's a, you know, a very, very expensive undertaking is my initial response to that.
It would probably be, we need to check into it and have somebody that's knowledgeable to walk the property and actually see if that could be done.
Yeah.
Or make it into a driving range, a larger one.
Right.
But short course would be pretty nice.
It's a good idea. I like the idea.
A wild one.
Money, yeah.
And people would still be able to walk along that trail that's planned from the bridge to Millard Road, as well along the side to Ross.
Yeah, John wasn't here.
Yeah. John would have a lot.
Lynn, bring it up next time when John's
Yeah, you
here.
could bring it up again when John's here.
Yeah.
Good idea. Other thoughts on that idea?
Should we do we need a motion or just revisit it, or?
I would say, I don't think we need a motion because I don't think there's anything we can do about it right now because the master plan, we don't even have
Just
the
add it.
doing it, but I think we don't need a motion to add it to our running tab of ideas. And then we can discuss it again. You could add it to the agenda again next time for more discussion.
Okay, now I will not be at the February meeting.
Okay.
I'll be out of state.
Okay.
That's the first
And
one.
the next
I'll
meeting
be
is
back in March.
February 7th. So it's not the second Monday of the month, which would be the 14th. So it's the 7th. So just so everybody's aware.
Right.
Right. Dana, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up?
No, I just wanted to, well, maybe, first of all, thank you guys for walking me through this. Is my first official meeting on the commission. I really appreciate your welcoming nature, and I'm really excited. And on the topics of adding things to the master plan, are you accepting recommendations? Because one thing that I would love to see worked on would be some trail definition and marking and improvement for the Columbia Botanical Gardens, including using Lynn's incredible idea of the plant markers. The QR code is just incredible. I love that so much. But I don't know if we could work on at least clearly defining the trails in that particular park, working on a visible map that users of the park could utilize, either being a digital one or a physical one near the location, and then just doing some actual trail improvement on the conditions of the trails themselves.
Yep, we usually have, so we have a document that's usually at the end of our packets every time, and we typically just kind of add stuff to it as we go of ideas that have come up for potential master plan inclusion when it's redone. And so we can, I know there's some stuff on there on trails and wanting to have all of that mapped out across all of our parks. But I can add the specific items that you mentioned to just kind of add it to our list. And that way, when the master plan is worked on, we have kind of all of those ideas compiled and we can go back through that and they don't get lost. So it's not a formal process at all to get it added to that list. I just look at my notes every time and update that file. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Jerry.
I'm sorry. So Dana, one of the things we talked about, I think, in the master plan in the past was that every park should have a kiosk at the entryway.
Yep, that's on.
I don't know if it's in the master plan.
That's on the list.
And we also wanted, to have, a map of the park with all the trails marked out. And for the botanical gardens, one of the things we specifically talked about, at least I talked about, was that, we get some of the cobblestones, from Portland and, incorporate those into that kiosk. Okay, so yeah, I just let you know that, I don't know if you knew, for your information.
Thank you so much. No, that's really good to hear.
All right, Paul, did you have anything?
Nope. I'm still here. Good.
Cool, thanks. All right, anything else before we adjourn?
Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job, Carmen.
What?
Okay.
Good job.
Well,
You've
thank
done
you
a
so
wonderful
much.
job.
Then I'm gonna have to go down. I just don't walk like I used to. I mean, I used to walk 3 times a week.
I was like, oh, right after.
Today I got it. I got an eagle today on hole number 18 up in Three Rivers.
Thank you, everybody.
I mean, it's like unbelievable. I mean, but I'm not a super.
I will check in with
But,
inventory tomorrow.
I want to go down and look at some of those trails.
Um,
My younger day, I walked all the time.
and I'll let you know as soon as it's there. I know they're dealing with some down trees right now in McCormick.
Well, Jerry, they're going to be doing some work, Crest, in July and August probably, but we're thinking of putting another kiosk, historical kiosk down there. And I'd like to ask Brandon to work on that for us.
So, what's really cool.
I don't think he heard that.
He just laughed. But Lynn, I gave you that packet. I still have that packet.
Yes.
There's that There's those pictures of the old sawmill down there and the old
Yes.
shipyards. You know, those things would be pretty, you know.
That's what I thought too. And you did wonderful research down there on the history. And so I'd like to get together with Brandon.
He knows a lot more than I do.
Well, we could collaborate.
Right, there wasn't much
I
on.
think when you have a kiosk, I think having, again, these pictures here, I think it adds a lot to it, but.
Oh, it does.
We
Plus,
try
we're-
to, you know, use that, we're not off.
I like it.
Trouble with the golf course,
I was curious if you would.
they are incredibly
Right.
expensive to run.
That's good news then.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's, you know, to build one and then to run one. You know, we can't even get them to
I've had
man
it
the
before.
parks, you know? I mean, I like the idea, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, but it's like people thought they tried to, anyway. Yeah, I just think just
It was
so
just,
expensive that.
yeah, just all the.
Well, you know, maybe it won't be as expensive as we think if we could get somebody in there that knows how to develop something like that, a simple one, even just a simple one.
Right.
And the maintenance man that works there already has all the equipment.
You know, Lynn, you know what I think would be kind of cool? This is just off the top of my head here. You had, you know, like a practice area, you know, driving range, you know, putting area, you know, sand bunkers, things like that. And then maybe three holes, you know, where you could just, you know, go, you know, and then.
And it was just like, which I know that's not.
You know,
That's a possibility too.
You know,
Yeah.
that's, you know,
Our after school program.
anyway.
I miss the St. Helens Golf Club that used to be up there off the Bachelor Road or, yeah. We used to go up there all the time.
So you were a
Anyway.
golfer, huh?
Yeah. So anyway, we'll talk later. I'm going to leave now and I'll see you in March.
Yeah, I gotta walk your trails. Bye.
All right, bye. Have fun.
Quick download. Oh. Okay, it's just been, because I got an email yesterday.
Okay. Howard? I think I've asked for that.
Is this still straight?
Got my exact equipment. Considered a weapon in here, couldn't it? Sort of a weapon is. Exact knife in my pocket.
Carmen, I'm glad you still support your
Is it still on
trail.
live?
It's still on live on YouTube
Yeah.
and meeting for all.
It should automatically end when I ended the meeting.